So today we're going to talk about an insecure guy that approached me in Malaysia. And this topic is about dating, financial insecurity, and the anticipation of rejection. So I had this random encounter that's revealed a pattern that you may recognize. So let's get started. Before I get into it, I want to say that I wanted to get these videos done. So I'm choosing done over perfection. So the old way I would overthink and then create the format, the scripts, the visuals, but I'm trying a new approach, and that means done over perfect. So this series is about showing up and not showing off. So I want to talk about the moment. I was walking around KL looking for a coffee shop, and this man stopped me and asked me if I was lost. And we started talking. So he had a friend with him, and I looked like I was in this area where I knew no one. And I'm asking him, like, where's the coffee shop? He's like, can I help you out? And we get to talking, and he essentially starts to ask me for my socials. And so I was like, "Okay, here's my social, here's my Instagram." And he tells me, "Go ahead and follow me now." And I was like, "Ooh," you know, that was a little I didn't think of it as aggressive. I thought of it as like a transaction in the space of sales. And so I was like, "Oh, he just did a hard close." And I thought that was quite impressive, because my background is in international tech sales as a former sales director. So I really respected the close. And then there was the shift. I asked him a question. I said, "What do you do for business?" And his question back to me was that, "Oh, what? I have to make a certain amount of money in order to get your socials." And I was like, that really went left. That really went from curiosity to understanding what he did for business, because I was assuming in my head that he was a part of sales or owned a business, etc. But it was never about how much money he made, because he'd already had my socials at the time. So the simple question turned into what I realized was a defensive action, and then this talk of worth. And the escalation told me everything that I needed to know. Just one innocent question, and the entire tone completely changed. "What do you do for business?" Because I was getting ready to compliment him. So I want to get into like what he thought was happening at that time. He thought I was questioning or screening for his finances to find out whether or not he could afford me, or if I had a number or a classification into which I would exchange or follow someone on social media. And so what I realized is that he was preparing and had already um, thought that I would reject him at that time before he'd ever come up to me. So before he had ever approached me, he had already had this idea of rejection in his space. And here's the reality. I wasn't judging him, and I was not even checking for his bank account. What I actually saw was confidence, the sales acumen, and someone who was worth talking to, but also I really wanted to give him a compliment. 'Cause he's a Black Nigerian man. They're from Africa, somewhere in Africa. He had an African friend. He was going into this building, and he came back to ask me if I was lost. And the whole encounter, through the conversation and me giving him my socials, him following me, and that quick conversion, sales is a sport. So I was like, "What do you do?" Because that was different. You just closed me. And here's what he didn't know. A lot of times people come up to you and they are already in their head. So I want to stop here and say that most of the times that you're in your head thinking someone is perceiving you one way, and it's not really what is actually happening. People have their own thoughts, their own lives, their own priorities before we approach them. And especially if you're a man going up to a woman, whatever you have as far as confidence is concerned is a you thing. It's not necessarily what is happening with them. So, what he did not know was that I'm Shane and I'm the founder of Mindful Dating. And I'm hired by NFL athletes and high performers to help them clear deep blocks and relational blocks so that they can get into the alignment of attracting and allowing what it is that they want as far as lifestyle, relationship, business choices, etc. And so I see patterns. I see the patterns. I see all unresolved pain showing up in dating, confidence, and connection. So the moment that he started to react, I wasn't confused. I'd seen it before. And I knew exactly what was happening at the moment that he made that decision to ask me that question. And it wasn't me, it was him. And deeper than him, it was something that was rooted in an experience that he probably was not even aware of. So here's the problem or the real pattern: financial trauma in dating. So I know you all hear a lot about the red pill, blue pill. I don't want to spend my money on a woman. What does she bring to the table? All of these things like that. And here's what the bottom or the surface of that is. That is financial trauma when it comes down into dating. So when money feels unstable, worth starts to feel unstable. When worth feels unstable, rejection feels closer. And when rejection feels close, you end up becoming defensive before anything has ever happened. So I know you guys hear the guys, the red pill guys on the internet, they're like, these girls, they want to take you for all of your money. They want to take advantage of you. And they just want to bounce from this guy to this guy and this guy. And that's just an indication of financial trauma. And I want to say that you can be wealthy and have a financial trauma, and you can also be financially challenged and have a financial trauma. It does not matter about your bank account or what you actually have in assets or don't. The underlying trauma comes from something very, very deep that's usually rooted in childhood. So I want to say this: that unresolved money trauma or financial trauma can quietly shape your whole entire dating experience and life. It creates anxiety, distance, and loneliness. And from a human sexuality perspective, there's three top reasons why relationships, marriages do not work. There's money, communication, and sex. And so when you have already a financial trauma, you can understand that the likelihood of any relationship is likely not going to last. So I want to look at this pattern. Unstable money moves to unstable worth, which creates this idea of or thought process subconsciously that rejection is going to be closer. And then you become defensive. Then there's the distance, the anxiety, and the loneliness inside of dating. And so what I want to say is that these are all real experiences. These are real circumstances. They have real effects. And maybe you're not coherent of it. Maybe you're not aware of it or conscious of it. But it does live somewhere deep inside of the subconscious. And these are likely the patterns that have been running you and ruling you inside of your relationships. So I want you to ask yourself this. What insecurity shows up first for you in dating? So what's the insecurity that shows up for you first in dating, right? If you're a guy or girl, when you're going up to approach a girl, what are those thoughts that come into your head when you're on your way? When you see her and you notice her, what are those self-defeating thoughts, those insecure thoughts that are coming up for you? And when a guy comes up to you and approach you as a woman, what are those insecurities that show up for you? Maybe you start touching your fingernails because they're not done. Maybe you make a comment about how you dress or how you look. These are all subconscious insecurities that surface in the level or in the situation where you are experiencing an encounter. And those are likely what's been running the background show of your dating experiences. So it can look like I'm not enough. So that fear of not being enough for someone. It can look like being judged, right? So you touching your hands, or you thinking she's going to reject me. That could be the fear of how you'll be perceived or even received. And then there's money and status. And this is about the fear of what you have or what you don't have. And then there's a pre-rejection, right? Like this guy had come to me, his background told me when he got defensive about me asking him what he was doing for what he did for business by saying, "You want to find out what my work is or how much money I have before you accept me." And I was not doing that at all. I was trying to, give him a compliment, but that pre-rejection, right? Like he had already rejected himself. He had already said that I'm not worthy. And this was not particularly about me. It is likely it's shown up for him in many areas of his life. And so what he had already done or what I'd seen was a pattern of pre-rejection. So the fear of rejection before connection begins. So ask yourself this, which of these insecurities or something else shows up for you first in dating? And write it down in the comments. So is it you're not enough? Is it being judged? Is it money and status? Or is it pre-rejection? I look forward to hearing from you inside of the comments. So tell me in the comments if this hit something deeper for you. If this sounds like something that you've experienced or something that you've been going over in your head again, and you're like, I don't know why that just went left. Um, but that was strange and you couldn't put your finger on it. Tell me in the comments if that happens. And I want you to do something else for me. Go to the link in my bio right now and apply for the priority waitlist. So let's get to the root of what's been quietly running your dating life. And there's another thing that you can do. If you want to do your relationship pattern analysis, you can join me on Meetup, where I have a weekly webinars. And you can find out what your relationship pattern analysis is. So how you get to do that is you go to the link in my bio and you sign up for the priority wait list and you write, Shane, I want to have a call with you, or Shane, I want to come to your webinar. So I want to tell you about what's coming next, part 2. So my dad is famous and he still suffers from money trauma. And so what we'll talk about is where these patterns begin, and we'll trace the money trauma back to its root and talk about how it controls your dating life and the invisible force that's shaping every connection that you make. So the next time we meet, we'll go deeper.